Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be reviewing is on the Mount Rushmore of movie sequels. Of course, I'm talking Aliens, and I was lucky enough to interview actor Ricco Ross. He plays Frost in the movie, had a lot of cool behind the scenes about the filming, the training that they did to, get ready for this movie, and a lot of ad-libbing that happened on set. And then, of course, he talked about his role in Death Wish 3 as the Cuban. So I love Death Wish 3. The more people I could talk to from it, the better my life is. And he had some stories about working with Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin within the same year, because he was in Dirty Dozen too. But I loved his origin story. A teacher during his freshman year of high school in Florida said, "Hey, you know what? You should be in the play." He said no. They said, "No, you should do it." And his life changed forever. And then he talks about how he got to England, was there for a while. And did you know he was a model? So many stories that you're going to love to hear from Rico. So I'll let him be the one to tell them to you. And do me a favor, before I start this video interview, subscribe. It's right over here. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. And you can go back after this. If this is your first time here, check out all of our other amazing interviews and movie sequel reviews. But hitting this subscribe bell, whenever a new one comes out, you'll know about it. You'll be the first to know about it. And don't forget to follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. We have a great website, sequelsonly.com. Without further ado, here's actor Ricco Ross. Oh, this is great, man. I'm so happy that we finally connected. And
I am too.
It was cool because we were doing that Death Wish 3. I know it was so short notice. Mm-hmm. That it worked out for those other guys. And I was like, oh, I have IMDb Pro. Let me reach out to a few more people. And it was like 3 days before. So I'm like, you know what? Things pop up. I get it. But it was cool hearing the stories about the filming and talking about working with Bronson. So
I wish I could have been there, man. I wish I could have been there because I'm sure that was fun. And it would have been fun for me too.
It was cool. Well, I could put you in contact with those guys because the thing that was wild was, and I'm sure if you were there, it would have been the same thing. It was like watching people that were friends forever, talk. And then at one point I go to Kirk and I go, when was the last time you guys saw each other? And he's like, I don't know. I think after we saw the premiere in New York. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, on their own. It's not like there was a screening for that.
No, but a lot of times it happens with projects because you work on a project and sometimes you're working on it for a few days. Other times you're working on it for a few months and you become friends with these guys. And it's a real friendship because you're with them more than they're with their family during that shooting time. And then all of a sudden you move on to the next job and they move on to the next job. And so when you do see each other again, dude, it's always fun. It's always good. Especially if
I
you
think it's like summer camp.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
It seriously is. Yeah. I'm helping this actor, Larry Henkin. I don't think you ever worked with him, but he's a character actor. He's been in like 200 things. And he said that he'd be on a movie for like 3 months and then he'd be like, oh, John Astin. He was like the nicest guy to work with. And then I never saw him again. But he was like, we were like best friends because we were the same age and we connected. And so, yeah, no, I love that.
Dude, I did Dirty Dozen 2 with Lee Marvin. And
I watched it last night.
Oh, and 11 other guys. And we're in England. So you don't know a lot of people from your own neighborhood because you're in a foreign country, a foreign city. And so you really do become close to these guys. And that's part of the character, too. You want to become close to the guys. So you lend yourself to that. And I remember after the shoot was over with, for like the next 3 years, I received Christmas cards from Lee Marvin, which was amazing. Yeah, it was really nice, man. It's from his wife. And he passed away shortly afterwards. But I still would receive these Christmas cards. And it was like the sweetest thing.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, we'll get to that because that's really cool. I think that whole year of your life, I'm sure, obviously other things that you did that I was reading about is really, really awesome. But I like to find out how people started. So you grew up outside of Chicago?
I grew up outside of Chicago, in Pembroke. And that was like, Oprah said it's the poorest city in America at one point. Wow. And so it was kind of a poor place. But my parents got divorced and I moved to Florida and a teacher kind of saw that I had a lot of energy and needed something to do with it. And she told me I was going to be in her play. And I said, I'm not. And she says, yes, you are. And that's how I got my started. And I ended up doing a couple more plays after that. And one of them was a real hit. And I kind of got the bug, man. As a matter of fact, I'm going back there on the 29th to start a scholarship in my name for other theater students who may be lacking funds and want to pursue this as a career.
Oh, wow. What part of Florida?
It was South Florida. It was Fort Lauderdale.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll be there on the 29th. It's actually there. It's I think the school's anniversary, so I kind of combined the two, and I just thought it was a good opportunity to give back.
Heck yeah, man! That's so cool that she had to be like, "Hey, you should do this. No, you should do it," and then it was just you were hooked. There was something about it. Did you ever do that before then, like playing like I don't know, like Army or anything as like a younger kid, like doing imaginative things?
I come from a large family of 11 kids, 5 boys, 5 girls, and 6 boys. So I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters. So you kind of have, you probably don't have as many friends as you would normally have because your brothers and sisters become your friends, but then they have friends too. And so you end up with a lot of people that you know. And I was kind of like, I would be kind of like the clown in the room very often, and I think the teacher saw that and she knew that it could either be a thing that could work against me or it could work for me. And she saw that in high school that, and I was in the 9th grade as well. So she saw that it was working against me at that stage. I had all this energy, probably eating too much sugar, and she she found a way to harness it. And I was impressed because she was hard, man. She was hard on me, and I told her, no, I'm not going to do it. And one of the reasons I didn't want to do it at that time is that I was afraid to read out loud. And I could read, but when I read out loud, I just felt like, I was really fearful of it. And she says, well, we're not going to do any reading. We're going to do this thing called improv, and you'll just improv. And I thought, oh, I can do that. Nice. I can act a fool anytime. So it kind of worked for me.
Oh, that's great. Where'd you rank in the 11? Where were you?
I'm in the lower middle, like 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you get that many, you definitely have to rank it. But
and you got to be a clown.
And
you got to clown around to get noticed.
You definitely do have to have a bit of a clown in you if you want to get noticed. And so it worked out in the best. And I actually read someplace that often middle children get attracted to the arts because the oldest get their attention when they're first born, and then the youngest always going to get their attention, but that middle child is always kind of searching. So maybe there was a bit of that going on as well.
Hey, it worked out. So from there, 9th grade, you do the play, you keep doing more. At one point, was it that you're like, I need to do this on the next level?
It wasn't until I finished my 2nd year of college, and then at that point, they're saying, listen, what are you going to major in? And I'm still trying to figure it out. And I went to this counselor and he says, well, what are you good at and what do you enjoy? And do you think you can make a living out of it? And I said, well, I think I'm good at and I enjoy acting. He goes, but that's hard to make a living out of. But I was a gambling man and I gambled on it. And then I studied it for a couple of years and graduated. But I just thought I am not in a position I don't have the confidence to do this. And I then applied to colleges. But as per usual for me at that stage, I was late to the game. So by the time I actually applied, I only applied to one school, which was my first choice. And I was lucky enough to get accepted. And that was UCLA. And I am forever indebted to them. And I will be starting a similar kind of foundation with them as well.
That's awesome. What years were you there? Late 70s, early 80s?
No, I was there from, exactly. I was there from 79 to 81. And there were only 12 people that they accepted from around the world. And I was one of those 12.
Wow.
And not only did they accept me, but they also gave me a fellowship, which meant that I could actually afford to do it. And because of that, man, I have such a debt to them that both my kids are UCLA graduates, even though they got offers from 5 other universities. They went to UCLA and graduated from there.
You're like, you're going to UCLA.
I was like, I was telling them, first of all, that it is a great school. But if you have a choice between a great school and schools that aren't as great, and you have this opportunity to go to a school that's really hard to get into and that's close to home, you might want to do it. I said, if you want to go study on the East Coast, then I would say do that, because I felt like that would be, there's an education that happens in the class and there's an education outside the class. And I thought an East Coast education would be really cool for them. I come from the Midwest. I love Midwest people. And I just thought that would be good for them. And they just decided to go ahead on and be a UCLA Bruin. So I was very pleased. I was very
nothing
pleased.
wrong with that.
No.
Wow, so 12 people get accepted around the world. Was there anybody else that ended up pursuing acting that, like, from your classes that you remember?
There were two people in the class that I always felt were the best actors in the class, and one of them ended up getting hooked on drugs and passing away. But he was like to me, he was like a Pacino or a Brando. He was so freaking good. Wow. So unfortunately, he passed away. And then the other guy, he was having a very difficult time in Hollywood. I started working right out of Hollywood. I got Young and the Restless while I was still there, and then I ended up in Hill Street Blues once I got out. And from that point on, I was pretty good. But this guy, I thought, was so talented that I would go on auditions and I would say, what would he do? And that would give me the confidence to do some crazy stuff that I may not have been able, may not have thought about doing, because I just remember that he was fearless. He was always present, and he couldn't get arrested in Hollywood. So he went from not being an actor into being a writer, and then he became a writer for the Cosby Show, and then he went on to write for other shows, and so he did quite well as a writer. And then eventually he decided he wanted to teach, so now he's a professor in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you're in at UCLA, are they training you for like auditions, or is that something that Hill Street Blues was that your first one?
No, when you're in a drama program, a good drama program, they train you for all of it, man. They train you for theater. They train you for the stage. They train you for the auditions. They train you for life preparedness for the actor. I remember my coach would say, one of the acting coaches would say, if they ask you if you can do anything, the answer is yes. And then by the time you have to do it, you better figure out how to do it, and it's pretty much worked 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But then after I did Hill Street Blues, I couldn't get a job. I was in Hill Street Blues for a while, but I got cast as a gang member. And, I come from Chicago, man. I come from the South Side, West Side of Chicago. So I knew gang members like the back of my hand. And I just knew that's easy for me to do. I can just picture this guy named Blue, and that's my character, and it will work out. And it worked out really well for Hill Street Blues. But after Hill Street Blues, at that time, being a young, kind of athletic guy, I couldn't get a job doing anything but playing gang members. And so I did that for a while, but I felt like I had more to offer with my master's degree. And so I ended up going back to UCLA and asking one of the acting professors, I was saying, I'm really, I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm working and I'm working a lot, but playing the same character with a different name, and it's frustrating for me as an artist. And he suggested that I go to audition for the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. It's like RADA, but it's Lambda. And I got in, and so I went there, and basically it's a Shakespearean course. It's a classical theater course. You go there and you learn Shakespeare. You learn all these other, Tartuffe and these different great writers. And the moment I got there, they suggested that all of the Americans acquire a British accent. And so I mean, actors are sponges anyway, and you put them in that environment and they'll suck it up. So by the time the program was over with, my English was better than a lot of the Londoners did.
Wow.
No, because when you are purposely trying to do it, you're picking up on everything. And before I knew it, I was, instead of saying dance class, I was saying dance class. And it just happens. And after the program was over with, I just thought, I can't go back to Hollywood. It's been too soon. I want to see if I could pull this off. And so I started going on auditions as an Englishman in England, in London, and auditioning for English roles. And this was before everything was all hooked up with computers. So I actually made up an equivalent Social Security number, and I started working for the next 4 years. I worked as an Englishman in London, in England, because that was the only way I could pull it off. And I figured the worst was going to happen is they're gonna send me back, and I'm going to do that anyway. So I ended up, and that 4 years turned out into 13 years. And actually, after the 4 years, I got legal, and I started working on American projects, i.e. Aliens and Mission Impossible, and movies that would come over there, and they would come over there with the stars, and then they would pick up other characters while they were there.
Wow, so you were already there, like because I was trying to figure out until I was like reading more things. I was like, oh, let me look at his IMDb for like the bio.
Right.
So I looked on the bio, and then because it was funny because everybody from Death Wish 3 auditioned for Aliens, so I didn't know if you were right. Pretty much everybody,
right? Yeah, it was crazy because Aliens, Death Wish, and Full Metal Jacket were all happening around the same time, and I actually got cast in Full Metal Jacket before I got cast in Aliens. And
what part?
It was for Lieutenant Cleveland was the character's name, and Stanley Kubrick had said, this is a job, but he wanted me for 8 weeks, and Cameron had said, before you accept anything, will you at least do me the favor of coming back and talking to me first? And so once Kubrick said that he wanted me, I went back to James as I had promised, and I said, listen, Kubrick's offering me 8 weeks, and at that time James Cameron had only done 1 or 2 movies, and they were small movies.
Yeah.
And Kubrick, what actor doesn't want to work with Stanley Kubrick? So I told him, I said, Stanley Kubrick's offering me 8 weeks, and I really I want to do it. He says, well, I says, if you can offer me something like Hicks or Hudson, then I'd be down. But I said, other than that, I kind of want to go with Kubrick. He says, what does Kubrick offer you? I said, well, Kubrick's script isn't written yet. I said, he actually has just had us audition with some scenes, and he says that we're going to go through these workshops, and what we bring out, that's going to be the film. Which to me, as an actor, improvisation, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to do that. I says, but he doesn't want to pay anything. And he says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you come to Aliens a week late because it only overlapped 1 week. And he says, and then you can do both. So I went back to Kubrick and I said, listen, Cameron once says, if you can release me after 8 weeks, then boom, we're good. I can do both. And Kubrick says, no. He says, I don't want to release you after 8 weeks. And I said, well, can I at least see the whole script so I can see what I'm going to be doing and make an educated choice? And he goes, no, the script isn't written. I says, well, can you at least pay me my wage? He goes, nope, everybody's on the same thing, and he's paying everybody like peanuts. But I understand it in hindsight because this film took almost a year to make.
Yeah,
I mean, we had made Aliens and we were on to other projects. They were still working, and we're all in London, so we would see them and we would hang out because there's only a small group of Americans in London. And so we would hang out and we would party together, and we were happy as hell on Aliens, but they were miserable, dude, over at Full Metal Jacket, man. They were miserable. And it was like night and day. And I actually saw the movie, and I loved the movie after it came out, and I would have done anything to be able to do both of them. But I think I made the right choice, and I'm kind of happy with that.
Yeah, that's so funny that those 3 movies are like, obviously Death Wish wasn't at the same time, but the fact that all of you guys auditioned, because it's funny, Tony did the opposite. Tony Spiridakis, right. He auditioned for both, and James Cameron wanted to offer him a part. I forget which one. And he was like, I love Cameron, but I got to go Kubrick. And then his scene, he did a scene in it,
and they
cut it out of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kirk told him during the thing that we did, the little reunion, Kirk goes, I read something not too long ago. The reason they cut your scene was the other actor in the scene, Stanley, didn't like the way he did it. So that's why he got cut. Not even anything he did.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it was
wow.
just that film had so many stories that I could tell you about Full Metal Jacket that people, the actors, were just like completely fed up with. One guy, this guy, I think he ended up playing the character that I was going to play, and I don't know if it was the same character's name because it was developed in during the workshopping of it. But he said that after they had extended his contract the second or third time, he says, "Listen, I'm willing to do it, but now you got to pay me my rate." He says, "I agreed to the
Yeah.
first time and the second time, do it for this amount, but you got to pay me my rate because I can't do anything else but this now." And he said Kubrick got pissed off at him and said, "All right, I'll pay you your rate if we go over." And what he ended up doing was just shooting all of his scenes. But in the last scene, they were trying to do this one scene where he gets shot, and I don't know if you remember that poster they used to have about Vietnam with this guy. He's getting his arms are in the air and he's getting shot in the back, and there's a big
Yeah.
Y. They kind of recreated that, and he's in a swamp, and so he has to get dressed, and then he gets shot, and he falls in the swamp. And he said Kubrick had me do that over and over and over again. And he said at some point I knew he was just getting back at me. He was getting back
Yeah.
at me, and he said, "Listen, why are we still doing it?" He said, "We're going to do it until I'm satisfied." And that was
Oh
that.
my
So I mean,
God.
they were having a horrible time, dude. And and
Oh,
we were at Aliens. We actually started working on Aliens a couple of weeks before the shoot, and they had a real drill sergeant come in and get us into shape so that we can learn formation, so that we can learn the signs, so we would move and act and behave like a unit on during battle and when we're not at battle, doing R&R time, and it worked. But what that also did was it brought us closer together as a cast. It brought us very close together as a cast, and also we began to know each other well enough to kind of like to really pull each other's change and give each other a hard time because we knew what would get to that person and we knew how far we could push it. And then even in that aspect, during the breakfast scene, a lot of that came out during the breakfast scene because there was a lot of ad-libbing going on during the breakfast scene when everybody gets out of hyperspace and hypersleep and we sit around the table. There was a lot of ad-libbing going on, and James was cool with it. He was like, "Let's just keep rolling. We'll use what works." And then when he would find things that work, he would say, "Okay, keep that in, and let's do another take, and you keep that in, or whatever." But I think we were able to pull that off because we had that extra time together to get to know each other.
that's great. You know what's so cool about watching the movies that made us, which I love those, was just the way it looked. Like the way it actually looked,
Mm-hmm.
the alien. And it's so crazy how great. I rewatched it the other night and how great it looks when you watch it. And like to this day, you got to think we're going back 35 years ago and it still
Right?
looks phenomenal.
That's funny that you would say that because I think about maybe 4 years ago because I saw the last time I saw the movie was a screening of it, and I never watched movies more than once that I'm in, and a lot of the movies I don't watch even once if they don't have a screening or if it's something that I just feel like I just because a lot of times by the time the movie comes out, you're on something else and you kind of miss
Yeah.
it. But I remember about 4 years ago, I'm flipping through channels and it was on and it had just kind of started. And I thought, I'm going to see how this holds up. I was shocked, dude. I was
Yeah.
shocked how well it held up because I did not think, in the 80s, man, the special effects were 80s special effects, and I just thought it's not going to hold up, but it held up so well, and I think James should pat himself on the back because he had the sense even back then to know that special effects are going to be temporary, as far as looking great, and that these doing it the way he chose to do it with the actually building a set and
Yeah.
using miniatures. If you can pull that off today, it'll be pulled off 20 years from now or 35 years from now.
When you're on a movie, because you've been on so many movies, and do you can you have this inkling that it's going to be something? Because think you were in, believe it or not, Death Wish 3 is out of Bronson's career, he has the great ones like The
Mm.
Mechanic and the first Death Wish and Magnificent Seven and Dirty Dozen.
Right,
There's so
right.
many movies that he's great in. But Death Wish 3 has this thing. But could you imagine, like, within like a year, you're filming 2 movies that are like still to this day people love?
Dude, it was almost 3 movies. Come on. It was almost
Oh
Full
yeah,
Metal Jacket too, man.
I know.
It is crazy. But in answer to your question, when I'm working on a set, and I think this may be the answer to a lot of actors too, is that you'll read a script and you've got your idea of what it's going to be like, and sometimes you think this is going to be it, and it just does nothing. And then other times you'll read a script and you'll go, this is a really horrible script, and it may not be horrible, but it won't be great. And then you'll read a script where you'll go, I don't know, I think this is a great idea. I think it's very different, but I didn't have the confidence after being wrong so many times to think this is going to be a hit. But I think it's a hit for 2 reasons. One is that James Cameron did a great job on the movie, but I also think you got to give Alien fans credit because they have kept this thing alive, man. They won't let it die, and it's because of them that we're still having this conversation 35 years later. And not only that, when I go to these Comic Cons and sci-fi conventions, and you meet new generations that are hooked on aliens already, and so you realize that maybe this thing is never going to die,
I know.
because they're not going to let it. They're not going to let it die. But no, and answer to your question, I'm the worst guest, man. I did this one movie with Vanessa Redgrave's daughter, Jolie Richardson, and we were the leads in the film, and it was a film shot when there weren't a lot of relationships between blacks and whites, romantic relationships. And this was my first romantic lead, and it was her first romantic lead. And we just thought this film was going to blow up, and we had some really good actors in it. And that was the one that kind of made me realize that you never know about these films. Your job is just to go in there and do the best you can and let the cards fall where they may. Because after the film was shot, we were just preparing to go to France, to Paris, for some type of event for the film opening and all that. And as we were trying to organize the tickets for that, there was a shooting in England. There was a massacre, and it killed a lot of people. And in our movie, we had a scene. It was a kind of dark comedy where the villain goes and is looking for her and I, and he goes into this club, and he can't see because there's so many people, and so he just shoots everybody, and then he's walking around picking heads up, going, "No, not him, not her, no." And it was a very funny scene at the time, but after that event happened, it wasn't funny anymore. And so they ended up holding the film and not releasing it for like 3 months or something like that. And then even when they did release it, all the talk on the shows the next day were about that scene and about how inappropriate it was. And so it kind of like it killed it for us, man. And after that, I was like, you never know what's going to happen. And as an actor, you're not in control of anything, but what you can do. And so from that point on, I'm just going to do the best with what I can control. And from that point on, I'll leave it up to the gods.
Yeah, there's editing, there's music, there's even trailers sometimes, or just advertising for a movie, like the one that just came out with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, the Duel, the last Duel that just came out.
Yeah, the advertisement
that movie had no press, nobody even knew it came out.
Right. And so this is the thing, that this business is such a team effort that it's even hard for me when I do get singled out for different projects I do, to take those, because I realize that it's such a team effort. If you look good, it's such a team effort. It really is. There was this one actor that received an award for some movie. I think it was the movie. It escapes my mind now, but I remember there's a scene of him at the end of the movie, kind of overlooking a mountain. He's on a cliff and he's overlooking the mountain. And they showed this scene in particular when he was receiving the award. This was part of the clip. And he stated that he says, I couldn't receive this award without mentioning the editor, the the cameraman and the sound man. He says, because if you look at that scene that they just showed you, he says, I'm just staring out into the abyss. But he says, the cameraman is creeping in and the music is swelling, and they've edited it in such a way that all of a sudden, it gives you chills. But he says, if you look at what I'm doing and you turn the sound off, it's basically me just looking, giving that 1,000-mile, that million-mile look, and everybody else is doing everything else. And I was like, you got it right. You got it right, because that's what filming. When you work on a film, that's what it's about. You may be on a film, and there may be an intimate scene with you and I, but there may be 150 people in the crew and around that help make that happen. And even though it may seem very intimate, it's everybody that's there. They're there for a reason. If they weren't there, believe me, they wouldn't be there, because nobody wants to pay somebody for nothing. So they're there for a reason, and that's why these projects are really good. Alien had a really amazing crew as well, and I think that's part of its success. I also think part of its success was that we had, I don't know if you heard, that there were issues with James Cameron and the English way of doing things, because the English, they have their tea breaks that they take, and it's mandatory, and you have to do it. And we'd be in a scene, man, and we'd be like cooking, and then James would be ready to do another take, and they would be like, sorry, tea time. And he would
That's crazy.
He would be mad. It's crazy. Yeah, he'd be really mad. And there was also a problem where I think people were working long hours, and they were working such long hours that it was coming into triple time. And I think at the time they didn't have a budget for that. So they were just saying, listen, we'll pay you for the hours, but we can't pay you these triple time fees. And Sigourney ended up hearing about this, and a couple of people got fired because they didn't like it. And she spoke up for them.
Wow.
And I think her doing that actually made the crew work that much harder, because they knew that there was somebody that had their back too. And so I think it was that crew worked their butt off on that film, probably harder than they would have on other films, because they knew that the star put her neck out on the line for them. And it was a great lesson for a young actor to see that happen, because I always thought, if I was ever in that position, I want to be that person too, that was going to speak up for the crew, because, you can't do it without the crew. You can't make a movie with just stars.
No.
You better have a good crew there. So, yeah.
So we were talking about you getting in England. And so the first movie was at the Dirty Dozen. The Next Mission, was that the first movie you did over there?
No, no, it wasn't. I worked a lot over there. I did a lot of English television as well. And, sometimes I'd be English, sometimes I'd be American. But no, it wasn't the first. I haven't looked at my.
Now, the only other thing before that is Scarred. So it's probably maybe things that were under. Did you go under Rico? Was Rico your English name
always
too?
Rico? Yeah, it was always the same name. So yeah, so it was definitely one of the first big ones that I got. Yeah, one of the leads. But yeah, I haven't looked at the IMDb.
Good people in that movie too. If you look at like Aliens, the cast, great people. But you look at Dirty Dozen, The Next Mission. Obviously, leave Marvin, but Gavin is in it. You're the gang leader.
That's right.
Pretty soon after, Sonny Landham, who Predator, like a year or two later, and Ken Wahl, who he
had his own TV series.
Yeah, dude, I love that show too.
Ken Wahl and I really became very close during the film. In the film, we were supposed to be buddies, and I think because we were supposed to be buddies in the film, we made an extra effort of being buddies outside the film. And so we were going out a lot in London. And Ken, I'll tell you something about that dude, man. That dude is a good looking dude, man. Back then, he was so fucking good looking. And we would go out and girls would just like flock to him, man. And I remember we were at this one club and girls were all over him. And they were going, so what do you do? What do you do? He goes, I'm a driver. He goes, what? Well, are you really? He goes, yeah, I'm his driver. And he was telling them that he was my driver. and he wouldn't leave it. He wouldn't leave it, man. He was like, really. And I was impressed. And I was saying, man, it must be hard for you, dude. Because girls were just like, they were all over him. He goes, no, man. He says, I got a nice lady, and I wouldn't want to mess that up, and so I'm gonna mess around. So it was cool. But Ken and I, we had a great time in London, man.
That's awesome, man. So then right from there, and then while you're over there, is the Whitney Houston video filmed in England?
Yeah, it was filmed in London, actually.
Oh,
It was
wow.
filmed in London. And I ended up getting the job. It was kind of a backhand compliment because the director says, he says, we had cast it already, but we wanted to recast it because we wanted to get a guy that could really act the part. And he says the other guy was just too good looking. I was like, okay.
Damn.
But we ended up doing the video, and it was like they hadn't had a lot of videos that were really storytelling videos like that. So and this director, he really wanted it to be a story. He wanted it to be a great story. So he had written it as such, and we played around with it, and he allowed improv and Whitney. I remember there's this one scene where she has to sing the song in the studio, and I'm behind the glass, and she's singing it, but she's lip singing it, and it's just not working. It's just not working, and she's giving it all, and it's just not working. And then the director says, "Can you actually sing it? Because we want to see the veins in your voice and all that stuff happening." And dude, when she sang it, I thought to myself, this is her first #1 hit, by the way, too. Saving All My Love for You. When she started singing it, it's like magical. And I thought, this girl's going to be a star. I mean, she was a young girl at the time, very young.
Oh, yeah.
And we got along great. Actually, exchanged numbers and wanted to keep in contact. But she was living in New York, and I was living in London. But once she started singing, I thought, this girl's special. She's special.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be the case, because that was her very first #1 hit, but many more followed.
Totally. I went to school with her nephew. Like my
really?
wife was, we grew up in South Plainfield, New Jersey, and and she ended up living here afterwards.
That's right. Exactly.
So she was like not too far from there, but yeah, her nephew was like a year older than me. My wife used to go to like birthday parties at her house, her like big house that her and Bobby lived in. But she's so cool. And I was wondering how that. Sometimes it's so cool when you look at people's IMDb's and you see all these different things, and then it's so neat. And then the one I wanted to ask you about, obviously I love Aliens, but so Death Wish 3, you and Gavin connect again. So what was it like with him? Because I know he's Irish, right? He's an Irish guy?
Right. But this is the thing about when you live for me, when I lived in London, I really loved the Irish that were in London, because they were always so down to earth, dude, and their sense of humor is off the chart. So I just love kicking it with him. And so with him, it was easy. It was very easy for us to be like, just ragging on each other and having fun. And I miss those dudes, man. That's why I said I would love to have been on that call, because I do.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be cool to know. I can definitely give you their emails. That'd be cool to connect you guys. But yeah, so Death Wish 3, the role of the Cuban.
Yes, that was an interesting film because I remember when I got the script, there wasn't a lot of lines in it for me, but there was, all this action. And I remember one of my acting coaches at UCLA saying that if you ever get a part where there aren't many lines, but you get the screen time, he says, that's a dream job, because that's easy for you, man. He says, it leaves a lot to the imagination, and you just do your thing. He also says, if you ever get a job where you get a chance to dance, that's another thing. That's a dream job, because it shows the character, and it gives another layer to the character. So I remember when I read the script and it was just a lot of action, I just thought, okay, this is what he's talking about, and let's do it, And it was a great job. We did have some issues, because they probably told you about it when we were in New York shooting it. When you shoot in these different areas where you want them to look authentic, chances are there are real gangs there, and these gangs, they like to be, at least asked if it's cool. And we didn't ask, and we just started shooting, and we got some real gang. And some I think there's a story about one guy who became an actor, not on our film, but on another film, where they were looking for gang members, and he looked the part and was the part at the time, and then became a real actor, and became quite a successful actor. But I remember when we were shooting it, there were real gang members that were there, and they were looking at us, and and they wanted to be in the film, and we already had the cast, and next thing you know, they weren't happy. And the last thing I remember is us getting on a bus, driving away, and them throwing rocks and bottles at us. It was fucking crazy. It was crazy, dude.
Alex was saying one of the places that you guys were shooting, like the night before, like a head was found in a building or something, and
yeah, because
everybody was like panicking.
It's real, dude. It's real stuff, man. It's real stuff happening. So it was crazy. And I don't know if they told you also that we had a scene. We shot Death Wish in New York, but we also shot a lot of it in London. And in London, they had this building that they had to set on fire, and you only get one building. So they set it on fire, and the first time they set it on fire, they got it, but it was pretty cool. And then the second time they set it on fire, and it was a stuntman doing jumping off of the building. And the second time they did it, it was even better. And then they said, let's do it again. And this time, just really burn this baby up. And they burnt it up, and it was so much fire that the stuntman's name was Rocky. I remember that. And Rocky said that when he got up to the top, it was so much smoke and fire that he couldn't see the boxes, the landing place. And he tried to go back downstairs, and when he got downstairs, there was so much fire that he couldn't go all the way down. So he went back up, and now that's even more difficult to see the landing spot. So he had to just guess where it was, and he ended up breaking his back in the process of it. But which is a horrible thing for a stuntman, because you can't be with an injury like that and still be in.
That's your career, you know?
Yeah, that's just your career. So I remember that issue happening. But yeah. The working on these films, man, as a kid, it's like I don't know, like playing Army or something like that. Some of these films are so much fun to be on, and you actually get to do this and be these heroes. It's the weirdest thing, because I've done so many play so many Army characters and cops, and I'm neither. And I'll be at these sci-fi conventions, and guys will tell me that, yeah, man, I saw Aliens and decided I wanted to be a Marines. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, you're the real deal.
Yeah, you're real, man.
You're real, man.
No, I think and one thing that was funny, I did the face paint when we did the reunion.
Oh,
and
nice.
All of them just started laughing. Kirk was just like dying laughing. He's like, how silly is that? Like that we had to like wear that. But I wanted to ask you about so those other three guys actually had to do their stunts. Like Alex, when he got shot, he jumped out the window, rolled down. Tony, I think Kirk had the blood packets and the charges on him.
Right.
But yours, obviously that was not you. Like that.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. But what they did was, I would be on the top of the building, and where he's going to toss me over the building, they had a rope tied to my foot, and I just go and I act like I'm going to do it, and I stop it right there, you know. But even that was kind of scary for somebody, because I'm not a stuntman. I would do a lot of stunts, because when I was at Lambda, one of the things that they did was that they really wanted you to be good at stage fighting and unarmed defense and all that stuff. And I became really good at it. I kind of wanted to be one of those actors that could do their own stunts. And it helps a lot too, because there's been things where I've done the stunt where it would have been really difficult to have the stuntman do it, or they didn't have a stuntman that looked like me. And back then also they would have white guys that were the stuntman, and they would do everybody's stunts, you know. And so then they would have to make them look like me, and so I actually wanted to be able to do a lot of my stunts. But I remember that was the one stunt that was a little scary, because I'm not afraid of height, but running towards the edge of a building and having to stop. And then I think they had a little pad for me to just land on the other side, but the other person, they had to fall. And even that, I just found it, you know, a bit frightening, because, things can go wrong, which actually did happen in that film.
What was it like? I think it's so cool. In 1 year, I don't know if you grew up as like a fan of the Dirty Dozen, but within 1 year, you're working with Lee Marvin and Charles Bronson.
Dude, working with Lee Marvin was really a blessing in a lot of ways, because I remember this one scene where I had to. I'm a sniper, and I had to shoot. I had a shot at Hitler, but my job, our mission, was not to shoot Hitler. It was to shoot this other guy, who was the brain behind it, his kind of right hand man. And I had this scene where Lee and I get into this argument because I got Hitler in my sight, and he's in the crossbars, and Lee's character is telling me, no, do the mission. Don't shoot him. And we get into this argument where I actually start like swelling up with tears, thinking that I could change the world. I could change the world right now. And I remember after we did the first take, Lee pulled me over to the side and he said, listen, you're doing a great job, but he says, you have to save it. He says, I said, what do you mean? He says, this is a long shot. We're going to do this 3 or 4 times. Then they're going to bring the cameras in for a mid shot. And we're going to do that 3 or 4 times. And then by the time they get to your close up, whatever you're using now, which is working it's working really well, you're going to have spent it. So he says, just go through the motions right now. And then, whatever you're using, save that for the close ups. And so it was a good lesson for me. And it kind of brought us close, because when you're an actor on the set, a lot of actors don't like taking advice from other actors. You'll take whatever comment the director says, but you don't like another artist giving you his opinion, because everybody's got an opinion. But when you're working with a legend, that's a whole different ball game. And he just schooled me in that first scene so well that from that point on, man, he was like that dad, man, that old granddad that's just gonna tell you the truth, tell you the way shit really is. And we became close because of that. And then his daughter came over for the shoot as well, and her and I hung out, and he used to give me a hard time about that, telling me not to keep hanging out with his daughter. And so we became really close. And I think that's why, even years after the movie was over with, I was still getting Christmas cards from him.
Wow. Look at that. That's like a master class before master classes, That's so cool.
It was, exactly. And there was another scene that there was an issue in that movie, was because it was one of those movies where I just started doing American parts. I'd been doing English parts only. And there was a scene where Lee Marvin comes to the prison cell, and he recruits me. And, and he asked me, he says, where'd you learn to shoot like that? And my answer was, at home. But when we were shooting this film, we kept on shooting it, and the director was not happy with it, and he couldn't figure out what was going wrong. And eventually we figured it out, because I'm supposed to be this dude from the hood and hard and all that. But instead of saying home, I was saying home. From home. It was that English thing that was just kicking in when I even wanted to kick in. And so once we realized that, I got back. I managed to fix that up, and the scene was fine. But it was one of those things that held us up for a minute.
That's amazing. How about like Charles? Just one last question about like Charles Bronson. What was he like to work with?
Charles Bronson during that time was he was very heavy mentally. There was a big weight on his wife.
His mind.
His wife, and so I kind of recognized that, and I didn't know all the stuff about his wife, what was going on, but I just we had some scenes, and I remember I was in his trailer for some reason. We were talking and just hanging out, and I asked him about his wife because I'd heard something, and he just got really quiet. And I knew that it was serious, and it's something that he didn't want to talk about. But that was the only time that I remember that he really just like kind of gotten quiet and kind of showed that was the issue at that time. He was out here making a movie and doing what he does, but at the same time he was really concerned about his wife.
Yeah, it's gotta be hard as an actor, especially when you're that. Like the movie,
So when it all revolves around you, there's a big responsibility for not just you, but like everybody's job is on the line. If you walk away right now, all of these people they're out of work. They're out of work.
Yeah.
There's a TV series that just finished called Insecure here in LA. And I never watched these after these post shows about a show. But my wife was watching it, and so I watched it, and she was saying that it was a very hard decision for her to not do another season, because she realized that all those people, they're going to be out of work now because of her, and some of those people, had gotten really good at what they do. Some of them had gotten so good that halfway through the shooting of the series, that they had left because they had better offers, which she said she was really happy for them. But she knew that new people were coming in, and they were learning the craft, and they were getting their feet wet. And when she decided not to do another season of it, all those opportunities, they come to a halt. And I think Bronson understood that too, and maybe that's the reason why he went through and made that movie, because it's something that he probably was under contract for, and he knows by that time, as many movies as he's done, that when he decides not to work, everybody else stops working too.
No, it's great that you recognize that. I know Conan did that, like when he just ended Conan O'Brien, when he just ended his show, and even like when Tom Cruise had that like blow up film in Mission Impossible. I think that's what it was about. He was like, "Hey man, if we're not working," like when he was yelling at all the people on set, he was saying it more for. I know he sounded like a crazy guy, but I think he was like, "Hey man, because if we're not doing anything, no one's getting paid. And that's how people get paid." So
that's right.
It's good when people recognize that,
Exactly. I was working on Mission Impossible, and we were shooting it in Prague, and I was working on another movie. I was trying to think of the name of the other movie, but anyway, I was working on another movie in London, and so when they offered me this job in Mission Impossible, I said, I got this other movie, and I still got I'm obligated to do these dates. They said, well, don't worry about it. We'll fly you back for that, and then we'll fly you back out here to finish this scene. I was like, cool. So I ended up going to Prague twice to shoot this little movie, Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And I remember we were shooting a scene with me, Christian Scott Thomas, and Tom, and there was an incident where we're there, and we're standing there talking, and a light from above fell down about maybe 2 feet from Tom Cruise, and it shattered. And this was a big freaking light. It shattered. If it had hit him, it would have been curtains.
Wow.
And I remember when it happened, it sounded like an explosion. It was wow. And we all jumped. And it was closest to Tom too. And I remember he says, I guess I'm just a lucky guy. But I mean, some heads must have rolled because of that incident. But that was one of the things that I remember that was really interesting for us working on. Another incident happened in that I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Another interesting thing that happened in that shoot was there was a scene where Kirsten Scott Thomas and I were both waiting, and we've been waiting for a while. And then we asked the people what was the holdup, and the holdup was apparently, this is what I heard, was that the director didn't want to come out until the whole cast was there, and Tom didn't want to come out until the whole crew was there, meaning the director as well. And so both of them were kind of like waiting for the other guy to come out. And we were just waiting, man. We were just waiting. I'm just thinking, who's going to win this one? But of course, the director, Brian De Palma, ends up winning because Tom was also not only being the star of the film, but he was also a producer on the film. Yeah. And he knew that every second he waited, you're paying all these people for nothing. So he eventually came out, and we shot the scene.
Oh my God. So Rico, at that time, so you're doing all these, you're doing the English roles like Doctor Who, Sherlock Holmes,
right?
A regular series in I think it was called West Beach or West Reach.
Yeah, West Beach. Yeah, that was something that I thought. See, there you go. That was one of the things that I thought was going to be a big hit. I thought that was going to be a big hit, and it came out. And what happened was it was very well received, but it was a German and English collaboration. BBC and some German company. But when it came out and it was well received, I think that this is what I heard is that the German company had brought it to the English company, and they wanted to own the whole thing. So they wanted to buy the English company out.
Yeah.
And the English company says, no, we'll stick with the contract. And my understanding was the German contract. The Germans said, well, if we can't buy you out. We're just not going to make a second season. And so it died after one season.
Ugh.
And that was something that I thought, was real. I had one of the lead roles in it, and I just thought this is going to change my life. And it went one season, and then curtains. So.
Isn't it the worst when shows end because of that? Not because of actually like the work in front of the camera or behind the camera. It's like something with some suits upstairs, like just not getting along.
It really is, man. And that's what I mean by when you're an actor. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm focusing more on producing now than just acting, is because you really can. The only thing you can control is yourself and what you're doing on the film. But you're so dependent upon all these other things working out for it to be a success. And it can make actors pretty damn insecure, about
definitely. If you do projects. Like 10 takes and you're like, oh, that number 7 was the best, and then you see the movie and you're like, wait, they used 4?
Exactly.
And it wasn't one that was good, or the guy wasn't looking the right way or something, your character.
No. Dude, we were working on Mission Impossible, and there was this one scene where Christian Scott and I had to walk to an elevator, and she had to push the elevator button. And Brian De Palma had us do this over and over and over till it got funny. And she says, well, look, what do you want me to do differently? And he says, just do it until I think it's okay. And I think I think he was flexing a little bit on it too. But but the dude's a great he knew what he was after. We didn't know what he was after, but he knew what he was after, and he wasn't going to stop shooting until he got it. So it was all good. But you really don't have a lot of control over a lot. So as an actor, you just go in there and do your thing.
Yeah. What was some of the so in that bio, you did some modeling in Italy? What kind of modeling were you doing over there?
Dude, when I graduated from Lambda, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I just thought I'm gonna just hang out here over the summer and then go back in the fall. And I was hanging out, and I needed to work, and acting jobs aren't regular. So there was a modeling job where they were looking for tall guys, and it was from this lady in Paris. She's a choreographer in Paris. And so I thought, I'll do it. I'll audition for this. I auditioned, and I got the job, and we shot the job. I mean, we did the show, and she liked me, and she said, I'd like to use you for all my shows. And I was like, what does that entail? She says, well, it's only 3 times a year. We have 3 seasons for men, and we have 4 seasons for girls. And we travel Paris, Milan, Munich, and London. And we end up in either New York or Las Vegas. And I was like, sign me up,
Yeah.
So here I am, a young guy, and I'm flying all over the world, man. And I'm working with the most beautiful women in the world, and they're paying me for it.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I was a counterfeit, though, because I thought I'm an actor and I'm acting like a model right now. And dude, let me tell you, I did that for 4 years. For 4 years, I did that because it was only like a couple of weeks each time, 3 times a year. And the only reason I stopped doing it was because the one thing that she said, she says, when I book you, I need you for the whole show. So if you agree to do a show that year, you have to do that show. And what she would do is after the show, she would book you for next year's show.
Ah.
And sometimes it conflicted with potential acting jobs. But on that final year, it ended up conflicting with Superman. Batman, the one with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but the one that Jack Nicholson.
That's the first one. Yeah, Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
And they had cast me in a role playing opposite Jack Nicholson as one of the reporters in there. It wasn't a big part.
Yeah.
But just to be able to work with Nicholson, I just thought, I want to do this. So I ended up doing it, and I ended up booking the job. And then they moved the date. And fortunately enough, it didn't conflict with anything. And then they moved the date a second time, and it conflicted with this modeling job. And so I ended up turning it down, passing on it, and doing the modeling gig. But after that show, I told her I couldn't do it anymore because I can't book myself a year in advance. I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing a year from now anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to back out of it. But it was like a dream job before then. I mean, Naomi Campbell was modeling, and all these people, and we were hitting Milan and just hitting Munich, and we were doing Paris. It was a crazy time to be a young guy from Midwest Chicago.
That's what's really cool. Like, you grew up in, like you said, Oprah said it was the poorest town in America, right?
Exactly. And now I'm all over the world with doing this, and it's just it was an amazing experience. And I remember myself thinking often that that saying would ring in my ear repeatedly, if my friends could see me now, man, because it was a precious time.
So, like, after that, like,
how did you know about the modeling thing, though?
I think it was in your bio.
Oh, okay.
I do like your greatest. I think you said your greatest accomplishment was your kids, and I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Being a dad too,
Yeah,
I like that.
Good. You get it. Then. You get it.
Yeah. So you had, like, obviously a bunch of roles, guest starring on, like, a bunch of big TV shows. But I thought what was really cool was, and I think you kind of mentioned it, like, doing the producing. And I think what's so cool, like, I love film, like, I love actual, like, film, like 70s, 80s, 90s.
Oh,
and
me too.
Like, I love, the only thing I do like about digital is now you can shoot digital and it can look, you can almost make it look like it's a big blockbuster movie. Back in the day, you watch a movie that had $100,000 budget, it looks like it had a no budget. Right. So I thought it was pretty cool. Like, even just I didn't watch it, but the Riddler, you had to play the Riddler in a short that actually you filmed that?
Well, strangely enough, Lance Hendricks and I were talking at one of these sci-fi conventions, and he was really excited about this little indie film. And I was turning down indie films all over the place because I just thought I want to focus on these big blockbuster films, and that's what I want to focus on. And he was saying, Rico, this is what he says. What I'm finding is that you can find young guys that have no money, but they have great ideas and they have great energy. And he says, and so I'm working on this film right now. And he says, and I'm loving this film. He says, and I get to play this character that I'm just crazy about. And he says, no, they don't have any money, so they can't pay my wage, my fee, but they can pay me something, and they can pay my expenses, and I get an opportunity to give back to these young filmmakers and put them at a level where they should be because they're so creative. And he kind of swayed me into thinking that, and I ended up doing a number of small films, but I remember one of them was a film that we started off doing a little film, a little bit of it here in LA. And right after that, they took that footage and they took it to Cannes in France. And it was all on all of the headlines. It was saying this is the first film that actually delves into why the Middle East don't like America, the West, and the West don't like the Middle East. Instead of just saying I hate you or you're evil, all that, this film actually talks about it. It goes into depth about it, and so we ended up shooting that little bit of film, and from that they ended up taking it to Cannes, and they got money to make a feature of it. And then I ended up going over to Africa, where we shot the rest of it in Morocco, in Casablanca. And we got Mickey Rourke as well on cast.
Cool.
And some other big names. And I remember thinking, these little films can turn out to big things too. And if you lend your talent and your experience to it, it heightens the whole project. And so I did that. And then the other film that was the one you mentioned. It was again a young filmmaker, and his girlfriend was a producer. But they had great ideas, and I liked their kind of the idea was they wanted to do films that were going to give women lead roles. The film's going to be centered around these female characters. And at that time, too, there were a lot of projects in London where female actresses, stars, were having a hard time finding scripts that will work for them. They were actually taking male written scripts and changing the sex of the character, because these films were more of what they were looking for. So I like this guy's idea of actually trying to promote that. And so I want to be a part of it. But he also said, I would love for you to play the Joker at first. No, he didn't want me to play the Joker. He wanted me to play Bruce Wayne at first. That was a character he wanted me to play at first. And the producers, he had some producers in Canada that just said, no, we can't do that. He said, everybody knows how Bruce Wayne looks and all that. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so, because this young filmmaker, he liked the idea of just really changing people's concept of characters and just mixing it up and just really doing something artistic with the casting as well as the film itself. And so he says, well, if he can't play that role, can he play? Would you guys be cool with him playing the Joker? And they said, yeah, that's fine. So they were cool with that. And so he was able to cast me to play the Joker. And so I just thought that if I'm going to play this role, I want to really do something different with it too. I look different. I'm going to look different. So I dyed my hair red. I had a little upside down question mark as a teardrop tattooed on my eye for the role. And I brought in this designer that I knew and had her design the outfit. And I ended up shooting that and went to film festivals, and I ended up winning Best Actor in it. And I just thought, you see, I thought I was giving back to him, but it actually turns out that, it was working well for me as well. And since then, I do a lot of indie movies. I actually have just gotten back from Costa Rica on an indie movie that I think is going to be a really good movie too when it comes out.
That's awesome. I interviewed Kathleen Kinmont, who's in Phoenix, and I just saw like a new poster just came out. She was so excited about it, and it seems like it's so cool when you talk with people. Some people do a movie, like when you see people on the talk shows, they do their press junket, something they have to do. But man, she was so excited. And again, a female driven story, which is like, what should be? Like, why not? It makes no sense, right?
Not only that, I thought it was not just a female driven story, but it's a female driven story where these women get to be action stars, where they actually do they handle it, man. And so it kind of the script reminded me of Jason Bourne, of somebody who has this ability and they don't know why, and they've lost their memory, they got amnesia, and except it's a female. And of course, once you change the sex, a lot of other things changes as well. So the script is very different from Bourne because of that, and the things that happen to her are very different because she's female instead of male, and her female co-stars, they have to bring it as well. And it was very cool film to work on. My character was very different. I'm FBI, kind of like, head of FBI. And so my character is very straight laced, but these women, they were handling it. And I can't wait to see it come out as well, because I think it's going to turn some heads. That project. And there's another project, that's called Do Something. And we shot this during the pandemic, and it's won so many awards, and rightfully so, because it's a really good project. But it's basically about this girl who's a female lead as well, and it deals with her mother and her grandmother, and so it deals with these three generations, and they were all kind of like, they were fighters, they were all fighters, and you see this in the script. And I think that film's is called Do Something, and I think that film's gonna change some heads too.
That's great. And like, I think I just thought about this, but it's so great. Like the 80s and 90s, like I was talking about, like the filming, like the no budget, get it out. But there was like the straight to video market, which was like Canon and like Roger Corman movies. But I think that's what's great about nowadays, because there's so many ways to get things out. Like, obviously you have the big streaming services, but there's like the little ones that are out there too that you could put your content out, and all you have to do is get it seen. And then that's what those directors are able to, because that's what it is. You're a director, like Cameron. Aliens did great, and then look how it changed for him. And I think that's what it is about these people nowadays, because there's a lot of people that are shooting. I think the guy who just shot Doctor Strange 2, like his first movie was like, I don't even want to guess what it is, but it was like something like, not like a kid's movie, but it was like something like, wow, but he went with it and people loved it. I think that's what nowadays, like that new wave could happen with the streaming platforms.
I think so too, and I think if people do have a desire to be a filmmaker, now is the best time ever.
Oh yeah.
One because it's so cheap now. You know, before you had to have deep pockets to make a movie. Now you can make a movie with your iPhone. You know, and they actually give classes where you can buy little lenses and whatnot, and you can actually make a movie with your iPhone. So there's no excuse about it if you've got a great idea and you want to do it. Also, as you said, there are so many different platforms now. If you do a good movie, it will find a platform. You know, it will find one. One will find it, but you got to do a good movie, and that's another reason why I think veteran actors should lend their talent to these young filmmakers, because if they come with the idea and they come with the energy, and then you lend your talent, that's when magic happens. You know?
Yeah. Well, one role I had to ask you about was A Husband for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed Eric Roberts. I think he's like the coolest guy. He does a lot of that too. He does like these little movies. He loves, and the reason his thing, it wasn't like he talked to Lance Henriksen and he was like, hey, you should do this. He used to say no to a lot of them. And I think after he met his wife, like the late 90s, he said like yes to like this movie in India. And then he was like, wow, I can travel the world. So he was really doing it for like the traveling aspect, because I get to do what I love and I get to shoot all around the world to do it. Then also Vivica A. Fox, like the best.
Well, interesting. I had the same conversation with Eric about doing these small films, and he told me, he said, I told him about what Lance had said, and he said he felt the same way. He felt like if you bring your skill set to these young filmmakers, it's going to elevate everything for them. And he says, and that was his way of giving back. He also told me at the time that he only wanted to do it for a couple more years, and he wanted to help as many filmmakers as he could during that time to, kind of like get in the business. And so I'm sure that time has changed, because he's still doing them now. He was actually even in the film that I did in Morocco. He was in that film.
Really?
Too, as well. Yeah. He and I have done probably 4 different movies together. He was 4 different movies together since then. But yeah, he does a lot of them, and he does them for the right reason too. You know, he charges a certain fee, which is not his regular fee, but he will get the perks of them flying him and in a nice first class and taking care of him that way. But he gets to travel all over, and they get an actor that really is good. Because Eric, you can say what you want to say about Eric, but Eric always delivers. He does. He does so many of these small films, but one of the things you will find consistent is that he always delivers.
He brings it. I
give credit
to a guy. Oh no, I was going to say, I talked to a guy that Eric was in the movie, and and I think that's what I'm sure the people that work with you, they use you in the smartest way. Like, you're not going to have you in the entire movie. There was this movie that this guy shot in Philly, not too far from me, and he reached out to me as I interviewed a couple people, including Eric, that were on it, and he wanted me to watch it. Like, he sent me the screener for it, and I thought it was so cool the way they used Eric in the movie, and he told me how great he was. And I think that's so cool that you mentioned like the giving back. And he was like, Eric was such a delight, took time to talk to people, and I'm like, that's like what you want, because that, you know what that does? It fuels the next generation of filmmakers and cast and crew.
And Eric is the perfect guy for that too, because he is a talker. and and he's got something to talk about. I mean, Eric's been in this business a long time. He's got stories that you would die to have on your podcast if he would tell them. But I'm sure he wouldn't tell them because he wouldn't want to out people. But but he's got some stories, and he's told me some stories that are just unbelievable stories, man. But also, I say you have to give a lot of credit to his wife. His wife is such a lovely, such a lovely lady, and she handles all of it, man. She takes care of it for him. He shows up and does the work, but she organizes everything with the filmmakers and makes sure that everything works out smoothly. And she's a beautiful, lovely woman.
Hollywood royalty too. Her parents were big time. Her dad was a big time writer, and her mom wrote on like all of the shows in like the 60s, like Bewitched.
I didn't know that. I just know her.
She was in Animal House. She was in Animal House.
Yeah, I just know her as his wife, and because of that, and then the amount of films we worked on, her and I would often talk and chat, and so I just think that he's lucky. He's got a good woman that's really good at what she does, and it works out well for all concerned.
Yeah. So Rico, one thing I love this has been great. It's so much fun doing this. Two questions I love asking people. Like, first, if that teacher, when you're a freshman in Florida, if that teacher didn't grab you and say, do this, was there anything else that you like had a passion for? I know it's a young age to have that life goal, but was there anything?
I doubt very seriously if I would have been an actor. That's for sure. I doubt that. But I think I probably would have. My family, they were really into business. They were my parents kind of like pushed business, and my elder brothers would go into business, and so I probably would have gone into some form of business. I don't think I would have gone into the arts, and it was that teacher who kind of like told me this is something that you can do, and this is something that you could be good at. I also want to give a shout out to Vivica Fox, because Vivica and I have done, I think, 5 movies together.
Wow.
In the last 4 movies together in the last 5 years, and she's also a producer now. So I think she has a deal with one of these Lifetime corporations. So she does them, and she's a producer on them as well. But she's someone else who is a producer on set. You can see her wearing her acting hat, and you can see her with her producing hat. And for me now getting into producing more, so it's been a good learning experience for me to watch her work, because Vivica, she's one of the hardest working women in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she puts the time in, she put the effort in, she works her butt off, and everything she's got, nothing's been given to her. She's earned it. I mean, she could have easily just been this gorgeous girl who played the hot chick all the time, and then just walked and rode off into the sunset. But she wanted to do more than that, and had an opportunity to do that, and she had the longevity now of her career because of that. But it hasn't been given to her. Vivica's earned everything that she got, and I'm really proud of her and happy to be her friend. And she's been my on-screen husband and lover for forever now. But in answer to your question, I think I probably would have gone into something. I might have gone into med school or something like that, because I did find that I got addicted to education, to going to school. And at some point I just thought, Rico, you got a master's degree, you got a bachelor's, and now you've gone and you got a certificate for classical theater. And I still wanted to go to school. And it was like, at some point I'm like, dude, you got to get out and make some money. You can't keep going to school. But it was also for someone who comes from small beginnings. It was a kind of safe environment, because when you're in university and in college, there's kind of a safety net there. If something goes wrong, you can go to financial aid. If there's an issue, you have a counselor there. And I just enjoyed that that environment because I thought I could flourish in this environment, and if things go wrong, there's someone to go to. So I really had to force myself to get out of school and actually sink or swim. You know, you can't just do this forever, bro. At some point, you got to sink or swim.
And then I always like to ask folks, like, because you never know, like when you're on set, like what this is going to turn out to be. Did you ever keep like mementos from any of your like early movies or like scripts or like your outfits or anything?
Dude, you naturally do. Often you work on a film, and at the end of the film, producers will want some of the stuff in case there's a reshoot. But oftentimes you'll be able to take things with you. What I did find is that when you work on a lot of films like I do, if I was on a TV series for 5 years or 10 years, I probably wouldn't. But when you work on a lot of films, you have an opportunity to take a lot of stuff. And so I was just getting stuff, and it was just stuff. So I stopped doing it. Yeah. Even with Aliens, I remember we had an opportunity to take some stuff, and I did not want to take it. And the only thing I think I did take was I took my dog tag that we had, and of course the script. And I think that was it. And even that, some girl sent me a fan letter saying that everybody in her class, her and her little girlfriends are fans of Aliens, and she's going to come to school as Frost, and they're all going to come to school at some event as the different characters. And I remember she asked for an autograph, and I sent her an autograph, but I also included my dog tag so she could have that too. And that was the only kind of cool momentum that I had from the show, and I don't even have that anymore.
But that's cool. Like, again, that's the giving back. Like, that is life changing. How long ago was that?
Oh man, that probably was like a dozen years ago. It's probably like 12 years ago. But I know I said this is gonna blow her freaking mind when she sees that that she's got the signed autograph and there's the dog tag and that's with it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
Rico, this has been awesome, man. I really loved hearing your story, and I think it's so cool that you were able to, within a few years, and almost obviously Full Metal Jacket, but just the fact that those movies were all circular at the same time. It's crazy.
Yeah. It was a great time, man. And I was in London, you know, we were all at that time in London. Even Jeanette, I don't know if you've spoken to Jeanette, but Jeanette, Alien was her first big job. And it was such a weird experience for her because, you know, Jeanette isn't Latina.
No.
I don't even know if it could happen today because she's not Latina. She's not dark skinned. They had to put makeup on her. Her eyes are green and they had to put brown contact lenses. But she did grow up in LA, and she grew up in an environment where even though she kind of she didn't grow up on the east side of LA. I think she was living closer to Beverly Hills. Yeah. But she had a lot of friends and acquaintances that were Latino, and I think that helped her find that character. And so when she got cast in the movie, she looked completely different, dude. She had long, wavy hair. She's got really long, wavy hair anyway, and she's quite she's not dark at all, and she's got green eyes, so she looked completely different. And then when she came on the set, man, after they had put the makeup on her and the contact lens and cut her hair, but she always had, at that time, she was into bodybuilding. So when they first saw her, they thought, we want this girl, whatever it takes. We want this girl. If she can act it, and she could, and she showed that she could act it, so that they were going to make it work. But she did the biggest transformation out of all the characters. Her character was the biggest transformation. And second to her, I would say, was probably Bill Paxton, who we all love.
James Cameron's buddy from
James Cameron buddy, man. James Cameron buddy, and James made him a star, man. But again, Bill was the type of dude that if you give him something to do, he's going to figure out how to do it. And he was he was kind of an inspiration because, you know, a lot of times on movies, there's a saying that you rush to wait. And so there's a lot of waiting when you're making a movie. There's a lot of downtime where you're just waiting for everything to be set up. But during that downtime, I would always see Bill working on his scene, working on his lines, working on it. And where the rest of us would be talking shit, and Paul Reiser would be telling jokes,
Oh
and
my
gosh, we're having a great time. But Bill did seem to spend more time just really trying to figure out how to make these scenes work. And I was shocked when the film finally came out how good he was on screen, because when we're shooting it, it didn't come across that way. But he really, I thought, stole the show when the film came out. And he lived in LA too, so we would often see each other. I would see Bill and Mark and Jeanette more often than anybody else. Now I probably only see Jeanette and Paul Reiser. We still stay in close contact.
Oh, that's great.
Mark is always busy doing something.
Oh man, Rico, thank you so much. Thanks for spending an hour and a half with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Oh my God, is that long? Dude, let's get off. I got things to do.
Yeah.
But
all right, man.
Check it out, man. I'm happy that we made it happen. I felt like I was in debt to you after not making it happen the first
don't worry
time.
about that, man. And I'll send you those guys' emails so you have it, and then you can contact Kirk or Tony or Alex.
I have to contact them just to say hi, man, and see what they're up to.
You got it.
All right, bro.
All right, man. Happy New Year.
All right, man. All right, you too. Take care.
Peace.